Hey, it's Nancy. Before we begin today, I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
A listener's note. The following episode contains coarse language, adult themes, and content of a violent and disturbing nature, and may not be suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
If you're a longtime listener of Crime Beat, you know I've shared several high-profile cases that have gripped the nation and beyond as they've unfolded. They're stories involving the disappearance of children along with their parents or grandparents, including Nathan O'Brien and Alvin and Kathy Lickness in 2014, and Sarah Bailey and Talia Marsman in 2016. Both of these cases ended in incomprehensible loss. As journalists, when we learn of cases with similar suspicious circumstances, there's an added level of sensitivity and urgency. We share all relevant information as quickly as possible to help lead to a positive outcome. This is what happened in the spring of 2019 when a young mother and her 22-month-old daughter went missing.
Jasmine was a really good mother. That's all she wanted to be in life as a mother, and she and Aliyah were completely inseparable.
I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. Today, on Crime Beat, I share details behind Jasmine Lovett and Aliyah Sanderson's disappearance and the exhaustive efforts investigators took to find them. This is Vanished. Before I begin, I want to let you know that Jasmine and Aliyah's family are extremely private. They've done several interviews with Global News in the past, and you'll hear excerpts of those in these episodes. However, we did not do a new interview. They have given their blessing as I put this special series together, and I'm grateful for their support as I share details of the difficult path they've been forced to take. They're extremely close-knit, and for 25-year-old Jasmine Lovett, family was everything. She loved spending time with her mother and sister and was well known for her quirky sense of humor at their regular get-togethers. And then there was her daughter, Aliyah, the light of her life. Jasmine was a devoted and caring mother. In early April of 2019, Jasmine had dinner with her family and made plans for Easter. She would be hosting on Good Friday. Jasmine had moved into a new townhouse located in the community of Cranston about 6 months earlier. Calgary is known for its urban sprawl. It has a huge footprint, and Cranston is one of a handful of suburbs on the far southern reaches, about 25 kilometers from downtown. It's home to a lot of young families, as it has a lot of parks and schools and easy access to major roads for commuters. There's also a lot of amenities in the community, like grocery stores and restaurants, which was perfect for Jasmine, who didn't drive. In the week leading up to Easter, Jasmine put Aliyah in a stroller and walked to a nearby grocery store. Jasmine scanned her items using the self-checkout and was captured on CCTV. This is a particularly important detail, as timelines are critical to this story. The time and date stamp on the video is Monday, April 15th, 2019 at 3:06 p.m. That was the last time they were seen together. On Good Friday, 3 days after Jasmine was seen at the grocery store, her sister texted her, but there was no answer. Next, she reached out through Facebook and later went to Jasmine's house and knocked on her door. Again, no answer. 2 days later, on Easter Sunday, Jasmine's mother tried to get in touch and also went to her house to knock on her door. When no one answered, she left a note for Jasmine to call her. But that call never came. It was completely out of character for Jasmine not to get back to her family. So by April 23rd, more than a week since anyone had heard from her, the family called the police. At that time, the case was assigned to the Calgary Police Missing Persons Unit, which works very closely with homicide investigators, including Detective John Pearson.
So Missing Persons has the ability under the Missing Persons Act to do a lot of cursory checks to just check on the welfare of somebody to make sure they're okay. So that includes shelters, banks, phones, hospitals, pretty much anywhere that might have record of you. They'll dig into to try to find out if you have checked in somewhere or done a transaction on your bank card or made calls, anything like that.
Statistics show that in Calgary, 99% of missing persons cases are resolved within 24 hours, when most people are located safe and sound. However, it was quickly apparent to investigators that this case might be one of those rare 1%.
On April 24th, our missing persons team, in consultation with our staff sergeant, decided that there was enough red flags in this investigation that it should be transitioned to something a little bit more resourced, and that included bringing in the homicide unit. We interview pretty much anyone that can give us information. That includes exes, current boyfriends, girlfriends, current spouses, children, grandparents, anyone that can give us information, especially on personality and habits of somebody. So in regards to Aliyah, we did speak to her father, who was estranged from her at the time. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to give us a lot of information for the habits of Jasmine or Aliyah at that time, and couldn't really help us any further.
Given that about a week had gone by without anyone hearing from Jasmine, and knowing a toddler was also missing, police put a lot of resources into the investigation. It was an all-hands-on-deck approach, and every homicide investigator had a task. Detective Stu Cole is retired from the Calgary Police Service now, but in 2019, he was one of the unit's go-to interviewers. And in this case, he started with Jasmine's family.
Just trying to find out last time they spoke to them, who are some of her friends and associates, anybody else that we could talk to that might have some information that will, I guess, get us further to finding out where they might be. Because at that point in time, it's a missing persons investigation. So we're just trying to find out who is in her life that we could talk to and hopefully just get us closer to finding them. I remember interviewing the sister initially in our police car, and she was very emotional. She was very emotional about and how uncharacteristic this was for Jasmine to not have any communication with them.
Detective Pearson said in those initial interviews, they learned that Jasmine didn't live alone.
So we learned that Jasmine's a single mom, but she is in a relationship with Robert Leeming, who actually lives at the same residence as Jasmine. We learned that Robert's from the UK. They met on a dating app.
Jasmine's sister told police the relationship had been romantic when they first met in September of 2018. Jasmine and Aliyah, then just 16 months old, moved into his townhouse a month later. Not long after, Jasmine was surprised to learn that she was pregnant with Robert Leeming's child. But that pregnancy was terminated in February of 2019. Jasmine's sister told police there had been bumps in the relationship and that the couple had been on again, off again for some time.
The relationship between Jasmine and Robert was always a little bit questionable as to the exact status of what that relationship was. There were some family members that thought it was more of a roommate situation, and there were some family members that thought for sure that they're intimate and they were a couple. If you're living with somebody and those people go missing, we're gonna need to talk to you to find out what you know. Whether you're involved or not, we need to know what you know, because you're the most important person and most important piece of that puzzle.
On April 24th, 2019, 9 days since her family had heard from Jasmine, police went to the Cranston townhouse to speak with Robert Leeming. Interactions were captured by several officers' body-worn cameras. Some of it is a bit hard to hear, so Detective Pearson will fill in gaps when needed.
How's it going? Says she's with her sister. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Alright. Well, we're just gonna take a quick look around. We need to have a look. So, sorry, you're Robert?
I've been drinking and smoking a lot, so.
Okay. Okay, so she's not with her sister.
What do you mean?
Well, that's the reason that we're here.
I think we're here.
Is the family's calling us saying we haven't heard from our daughter and our sister.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah,
Okay, why does that make sense?
because I haven't heard from her either. So she's not with her family, but she did threaten to move out. I don't know, like 3 weeks ago, we got into a tizzy. She threw a bunch of my stuff out, food, stuff like that. And I had to just talk about that. Like, I mean, I've had people living with me before, and they move out.
Right, but this isn't just like a roommate. This is your girlfriend.
No, it's more roommate than girlfriend.
Okay.
For the most part, Mr. Leeming's denying kind of any relationship and playing just straight up roommate. Knows her, friends with Aliyah, but doesn't keep track of her comings and goings. To patrol, it seemed like there was a likelihood he could just be a roommate and he's got a girlfriend. So obviously with that information, we look and we have to speak to the girlfriend who actually confirms and corroborates that she did spend time with Mr. Leeming.
So, the last time that you saw Jasmine was when?
Thursday.
Okay. And at that time, you guys were A-okay or fighting, or what was the status?
I would say in the air.
So what makes you believe that she's with her sister?
She told me that she was going to go and spend Easter with them on Tuesday. I was talking about it because I don't have my son, so, you know, it's kind of depressed about that. Just, you know, a lot of drinking a lot over the weekend because I've pretty much been on my own, right?
Initially, we were looking at the possibility of Jasmine running away. We did know the relationship, at least according to family, did have some issues. So we had to keep that in mind, that maybe this was a personal decision of hers just to leave and basically cut off all ties so she couldn't be found.
But that raised an important question for investigators, because if that were true, they likely would have found some sort of footprints of life.
It's not normal for people, especially in today's culture, to just not be in touch with something, not be online somehow. And for that to all stop is really the only reason would be your phone's dead, and that doesn't last that long.
It is the devastating news no one wanted to hear. A homicide investigation is now underway into the disappearance of a young Calgary mom and her 22-month-old daughter. 25-year-old Jasmine Lovett and her little girl Aliyah Sanderson have not been seen in 9 days. Tonight, police confirm there is no evidence they are alive.
So we had no banking records. Her cell phone hadn't been used in a week. There was no signs of Aliyah attending her daycare. Jasmine had missed a job interview. All these things that we kind of learned, all these things that as we go through and start digging into what these people were supposed to be doing or what they should be doing, when they're not happening, those raise a lot of the red flags. Basically, the week prior to Jasmine being reported, all signs of life stopped.
You often hear about how the first 48 hours are critical to an investigation. And in this case, investigators were trying to catch up.
If something has happened to somebody, you lose a whole week or 10 days, in this case, of gathering evidence and allowing cleanups to be done and things to be discarded, phones to be gotten rid of, anything like that, that in a suspicious death would be common if you have that kind of time.
They also had the added pressure of knowing a 22-month-old had disappeared, and at that age, time is of the essence. Officers canvassed the neighborhood and area businesses for CCTV, hoping Jasmine and Aliyah had been captured on video, but came up empty beyond the video of them at the grocery store that was captured April 15th and then discovered within hours of family reporting them missing.
So at this point, decisions made that we're going to arrest Mr. Leeming, bring him for an interview, and get a on-the-record story of him about his relationship with Jasmine and Aliyah, how long they've been together, what the circumstances are, what he knows about what's going on, and did he have any knowledge of, or any involvement in what happened to Jasmine or Aliyah.
Detective Stu Cole was once again called on.
I was assigned by the primary investigator to conduct an interview with Robert Leeming, who was the boyfriend/roommate, whatever his role was at the time. He was from England, but he was living in Canada, owned the condo. He was very cooperative. He was providing a timeline of their relationship, a timeline of when he said he saw them last, a timeline of what he did that week, what he didn't do that week.
You'll remember I said timelines are important in this story. Police wanted a clear version of events, according to Robert Leeming, to compare with the evidence gathered in the case.
When Detective Cole does the interview, myself along with other team members are monitoring this, and the real reason is to look for the things that are being said that, okay, we can prove this, what can we actually build? Because our job isn't ultimately to find the bad guy. Our job is to find the truth. So if we can prove him true here, that's great. If we can prove him false here, that's great. It doesn't matter which way it goes, it's just to find the truth.
So while the interview continued for hours and hours, behind the scenes, investigators worked to retrace his movements. They quickly discovered Leeming had left a few significant and very traceable details out of his version of events.
One other key thing we found with Mr. Leeming is that he actually received a speeding ticket just west of Calgary on April the 18th.
Most times, if you're pulled over, you're on camera. So Leeming's interaction that day was all captured on video.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Pastor 132 in the posted 110. So take a quick look at your license, registration, insurance, please.
He was clocked going 132 kilometers an hour in 110 zone while traveling eastbound on Highway 1, the Trans-Canada Highway west of Calgary, about 50 kilometers from his townhouse in Cranston. At that time, the officer who pulled him over noted Leeming was alone.
It ended up being a red flag for us because of the way Mr. Leeming presented his story to us. That was not included in anything, nor was a trip to Kananaskis or Canmore or Cochrane or anything like that would have brought him out there. And that's a significant enough event that if I was trying to explain where I was, that's a perfect example of, no, I was here, here's my proof. But he doesn't mention any of that to us.
An investigation like this can get hectic as detectives race against the clock. With a little girl and her mother missing, their goal is always to find them and bring them home safe. But this particular day was one of the busiest in this case. We have Detective Cole interviewing Leeming, officers reviewing CCTV, other officers going through tips from the public, tech crimes investigators and crime analysts, all looking at evidence and following potential leads. And then, in the organized chaos, another massive investigative avenue opened up. officers obtained a warrant to examine the townhouse where Jasmine and Aliyah lived with Robert Leeming. Constable Jim Weeks became the primary crime scene investigator assigned to search the residence. He told me they had to enter the home through the garage because they soon found out the front door had been barricaded from the inside.
The front entrance to that residence, there was a recessed window within the door that was opaque, covered in cellophane. And I didn't quite understand the reasoning for why it was covered in cellophane. It wasn't until I actually entered into that residence where I noticed that same door, it had been braced shut with two extended, ratcheted telescopic posts that were attached to both sides of the door and then braced it down to the floor. And I thought that was odd, for sure.
Then, an even more unusual discovery.
We started finding bacon, raw bacon that was strewn over the chairs within the kitchen, the backs of the chairs. There was raw bacon that was placed over the register within the foyer. It was raw. It took some time before I actually was able to identify what it was, but it wasn't rotted. Hadn't been there long. And that really raised some alarms for myself as to what we had here. I had spoken to a few people and they thought, well, maybe it was a tactic that he was trying to employ to confuse the cadaver dogs. Our dogs aren't trained with the use of pork, so it had no effect on the dogs. I've never seen that before. It resonated with me in the follow-up to processing the house, where I started finding books belonging to him in his library of books, where they were books on survival and survival tactics and how to live in the wilderness.
Constable Weeks updated homicide investigators every step of the way, and in turn, Detective Cole asked Robert Leeming about these findings.
Some of the stuff he had no answer for. Like, for example, the raw bacon. I said, any idea how that got there? He goes, poof, yeah, no idea. I said, you would agree that's a strange place to find raw bacon. And he said, yeah, absolutely. I don't really have an answer for you.
As Detective Weeks continued his search, fear grew that they were too late, that key evidence had already been destroyed.
It appeared to me that the house had been cleaned. With infrared and UV light source, we could start seeing some smear marks on the floor and on the walls. Generally, if there is blood, we'll get a reaction. It'll glow immediately, and the camera will pick up on that. We were getting a ghosting effect. Certainly there was a presence of something. It could have been bleach, could have been a cleaner. We don't know that for certain, but in the course of our investigation, we make notes and then we'll follow up with swabbing those areas where the ghosting is more present, where we're seeing that glow occur. Knowing that time gap, there is quite a bit of a challenge. We know the fact that if there's been a murder within the house, there's a good chance that he has had time to clean the residence.
Police said Leeming's Mercedes SUV had also been cleaned. And since it wasn't a new model, there was no GPS data of its movements, though they did find a receipt for gas and a car wash dated April 21st, 2019, 6 days after Jasmine disappeared. Investigators would need to follow up and see if they could find video evidence from that service station. In the meantime, cell phone evidence revealed more inconsistencies in Leeming's timeline. As you've heard in previous episodes of Crime Beat, investigators can narrow in on someone's location based on where a cell phone pings off a particular tower. Here again is homicide detective John Pearson.
Basically, a cell phone tower will give you a direction and approximate distance away from the tower. So with enough information, you can get an idea of approximately where somebody is in an area out of 360 degrees. So if we're looking at a circle, we can narrow it down to, say, a 45-degree area that we're looking at.
Officers learned that on April 17th, Jasmine's phone pinged in the Bragg Creek area. But you'll recall she was last heard from on April 15th, 2 days earlier. Bragg Creek is a small tourist destination in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. It's basically directly west from Cranston, about a half-hour drive from where the townhouse is located. It's a popular stop for hikers, bikers, and skiers as it borders Kananaskis Provincial Park. Again, officers went back to Detective Stu Cole to see if he could get some answers from Leeming on the inconsistencies in his timeline.
So, for example, he talked about this particular day being home all day. Well, then once confronted with cell phone evidence from Jasmine's phone to say that, no, she's in Bragg Creek, then he said, oh, that's right, yeah, we went for a picnic. And then he was able to describe some of the snacks that they took for the picnic, where they went for the picnic.
Leeming had appeared cooperative, so it seems strange that he would leave out details of something as significant as a picnic with the missing mother and daughter.
So there's a lot of things that were adding up that were adding more evidence to suggest that they were murdered and that he was responsible for it. We just didn't know where they were. And I thought, at some point in time, as he was seeing how much evidence was adding up, that he might eventually say, yeah, this is where they are.
Detective Pearson said investigators needed to find a way to either prove or disprove Leeming's story.
Ideally, I would love everyone to be honest and come forward with what's happened. Unfortunately, it's preservation of self sometimes, and the decision to not say anything or provide false information is very common. If he's telling the truth, we're trying to corroborate it. So if he says they're for a picnic, then we'll go to Bragg Creek and we'll try to pull video from anything that would capture his vehicle driving by or a possible of his vehicle in the time frames that we're looking at. So we're trying to do everything we can to get as much information and accurate information as we can.
A massive police presence descended on Bragg Creek. While officers went door to door looking for CCTV, search and rescue crews began working their way through the densely forested area on foot and on horseback. I remember covering those searches. It was a huge undertaking. And in the meantime, back at Calgary Police Headquarters, Detective Stu Cole wrapped up his interview with Robert Leeming. At that point, Jasmine and Aliyah had been missing for 10 days, but police could only hold him for questioning for 24 hours.
Now, I was trying to appeal to the human side of him to say, hey, listen, we have a mom and a little girl out there. It's important for you to share where are they, right? It's looking like you're responsible for this. I mean, it ended up getting to that level in that first interview where I guess it was essentially accusatory towards the end, but he was released without charges on that first interview.
Well, this is obviously a very difficult situation. Homicide detectives are working around the clock to help solve this case. And many of these investigators have children as well. So knowing they're dealing with what's considered a double homicide is extremely difficult. Police say the suspect in this case remains a suspect. He was taken into custody at 11 a.m. Thursday. 24 hours later, police officers released him.
Now, Nancy, with police confirming that the man taken into custody yesterday is still the main suspect in the case, can you explain more about why police released him today?
We've seen this in a number of cases in the past. And to be very clear, police say that this suspect remains the primary suspect in this case. However, once somebody is taken into custody, police have 24 hours to either charge that person or let him go. So he has been let go. That does not mean the investigation stops. It doesn't stop. This continues on and police gather more evidence. And of course, we will have more information on that in the coming days. Detective Pearson said it was incredibly frustrating. They suspected that Robert Leeming knew where the missing mom and toddler were, but wouldn't provide the answers they hoped for. I wondered, was there any chance he'd open up to me?
From what we see, you're considered a suspect in a double homicide. So this is your chance to tell us what has transpired.
Yeah, it's pretty serious, right? But who says that they're dead? That's crazy. I don't know where they are. And that's the biggest thing, is there's, if they were dead, then the CPS would know, right? But they're not. They don't know. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's anything to do with me.
At the same time, investigators pored over hours of CCTV footage until...
This is when things start taking a turn.
Officers uncovered shocking evidence.
Once you see that, things go from, I hope she's alive, to I hope we can find her.
That's next time on Crime Beat. Crime Beat is written and produced by me, Nancy Hixt, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Audio editing and sound design is by Rob Johnston. Special thanks to photographer-editor Danny Lantella for his work on this episode. And thanks to Chris Bassett, the VP of Network Content Production and Distribution and Editorial Standards for Global News. I would love to have you tell a friend about this podcast. There are 7 seasons of stories you can listen to and share. And please consider rating and reviewing Crime Beat on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can find me on Facebook at Nancy Hixt Crime Beat and on Instagram at nancy.hixt. That's Hixt. Thanks again for listening. Please join me next time.